Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Today, we are hosting one of our thought leadership webinars, and our conversation today is with Mr. Mark Sweeney. We'll be discussing how company culture will play such an important role in a post-pandemic world. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Piche, and I look after the marketing here at Ferroque Systems. I'm very excited to have two very special guests with us today, Todd Hsu, President of Ferroque Systems, and Mr. Mark Sweeney. Todd is one of the earliest pioneers of Citrix solutions in North America, who built one of the most successful Citrix practices in the world. His business was acquired by Citrix in 2012, after which Todd led Citrix's consulting organization in Canada for 5 years. Today, Todd joins Ferroque as both president and partner. Our guest today, Mr. Mark Sweeney, is Regional Vice President of Citrix Systems UK and Ireland. Over the past 25 years, Mark has held numerous consultative roles in varying industries, including manufacturing, telecoms, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, education, and government. He has a passion for innovation within the technical professional services field and understands the power of delivering consistent employee experiences when working with customers. Looking forward as we move beyond COVID-19, Mark seeks to empower global leaders to think through the learnings of the past years so our employees will remain engaged and productive. I am both privileged and honored to welcome today our guest, Mr. Mark Sweeney.
Hi, thanks, Amber.
Awesome, it's great to have you here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Todd?
Good to see
Good to see
you.
you as well.
You, man. Hey, so thanks everybody to taking the time of the day. Especially, I know that we have some friends that are in Europe, so it's a bit late now. So thank you for joining us. So part of our webinar series for that we do it at Ferroque is technical webinars, and then we also have the thought leaderships and business leadership webinars, and I'm so glad that we have Mark with us today. And some of the things that before we start, I wanted to talk about the word grit. In psychology, grit is a positive, a trait based on the individual's perseverance of effort combined with the passion for a particular long-term goal, right? And that is a powerful motivation to achieve an objective. So if you look at the word grit and you look it up in a dictionary, I really believe that you will see Mark's photo next to it. I had the pleasure of working with Mark for many years. His style of leadership is best described as one word: grit. I can recall many times Mark picking up the task at any given time of the day, pushing things through and led his team through the goal line. The man simply doesn't know how to quit. May not always be pretty, but I think it's always effective. And we have the pleasure of Mark have Mark joining us today and talk about his journey in the virtual workspace business, the Citrix ecosystems, and where the workplace is going to be, and also that his new challenge right now in UK and Ireland. So Mark, we're gonna start the questions, and just free flow it, and then tell us what you think, and tell us a little bit. Some questions going to be a little bit less known for the public, but I think it'll be fun. So first and foremost, would you mind sharing with us and tell us how you were the last man, literally the last man that made the team, and how was the journey has been since year 2000? That's 21 years ago, right? From a field consultant to really going around the globe and as a leaders in various areas around the world at Citrix.
Yeah. So I appreciate you asking me that question, Todd. And I can't think that when I first told you that story 10 years ago, that you'd bring it up on a webinar like this, asking me how I feel about being the last man on the team. Yeah, I've actually thought about this on a number of different occasions. Thought about thought about being the last man and the connotation around it. So, am I the last man in terms of, I was the last person that was going to join their team, and they had to make sure that they identified the right persona, the right person for the team, or was I just the last person left? And there was nobody left else to pick, so they just went with me. So I guess it's the lens in which you look at it, and the lens in which you look at yourself to define, how you were the last man. I think in the case that we're talking about, I think I was the last guy in the pool that was picked. So it goes back to when I was in third grade, and I was the last guy picked on the on the kickball team. I will say, in the third grade, I did kick a home run after being picked last man. So I do still have some kickball skills. But to answer your question, I mean the inside joke there is that Citrix acquired a company back in 2000 called Innovex, and I was the last employee hired right before that acquisition. And a lot of people like to joke that I was the last guy that joined the team, but it has been an incredible journey for me. And starting in 2000, within that role, I started as a professional services consultant, traveling around the U.S. Eventually started traveling around the world as well. Did projects in the U.K. Did a number of projects in Latin America, went to Australia, did a couple of projects there. And then as my career moved within the professional services industry, moved into a number of different roles. And my goal was always to be moving forward and always to be looking at something new. And I tried to identify, a role that I would be working for every 2 to 3 years. So as I started as that field consultant, I moved into more of a project management role, leading engagements, leading projects, and then from there, moved into a services selling role, looking at supporting our South Central business, helping them, helping customers over there identify the right delivery, the right services for them. And then from there, moving into around that time, we were doing acquisitions. We acquired NetScaler. We acquired some products that eventually made up, virtual apps and desktops, and started building out service offerings, for that. And for me, it was always, what Amber was mentioning earlier is the innovation piece. So I really like the idea of innovating and identifying new service offerings for our new products. That led me to actually meeting you, Todd, when we went to, when I met you for the first time in Canada, and spending some time out there with my team, and then working in Latin America, doing the area manager role for the professional services team, and then eventually going into higher roles within the professional services organization, leading our sales team, leading our delivery team, and then eventually leading the global team for a few years. Now where I'm at right now, I think leading the UKI team, it's a lot of those experiences I've had along the way. A lot of the whether it's working with our channel or working with our customers or working with people from all walks of life, it's all paid out. And I think that story going back to the last guy, it's played out in a number of different ways in my career, and it's something that it's not necessarily a chip on my shoulder, but it's it's a badge of honor. I like to think about that. I like to think now that I was the last person that they decided to hire before they were acquired.
Yeah, well, Tom Brady was picked 199, and there's 198 guys in front of him, right? None of them are playing today still, right?
Nope.
Exactly. So yeah, no, I thought it was just interesting, and the fact is that the fact was that wasn't really because I don't know if a lot of people know, but you had you were trained as an accountant.
Yeah.
Right. So that was nothing to do with software and tech, but it makes no difference if if you put your mind to it and ended up doing it, and and you, like you said about getting yourself a challenge every 2-3 years and then just moving up along the ladder, and then that's what matters. So that's cool. And so yeah, so the second question kind of leads into that. For those of you who are, I see some people attendees. They're from everywhere. You got a message from Egypt, Mark, that they're wishing you all the success. So we got people from everywhere. But for those of you who don't know, Ferroque Systems, Ferroque Systems is based out of Toronto, Canada. And you mentioned that you spent some time. Actually, you spent a couple of years in Canada, actually living here, not far from where I'm sitting right now. So what is your memory in Canada like?
Yeah, so I mean,
Other than you have to deal with me.
Well, the first couple of years were good until you came on board. No, but no, the first thing I remember is I remember how bitter cold it was when I started, because I started on January 1st in Canada in 2009, and it was so incredibly cold on that first day. And I just remembered I didn't have a hat that covered up my ears, and then the top parts of my ears were just incredibly cold. I just thought they were going to fall off. But the big memory I have, and I say this all the time, is that when I think about my career at Citrix, and I'll talk about some stories from Canada in a little bit, but when I think about my career at Citrix, I often define it as pre-Canada and post-Canada, because the role I took in Canada really defined my career, and it was really a moment for me where I started to accelerate in terms of trying to move in the right direction. And there were a lot of reasons why. I mean, I think one of the areas that helped me do it was that, back to your story about the last man picked. Prior to me in Canada, there were probably 7 or 8, 9 other consulting managers who gave it a shot, and they definitely did some good work. They made some good progress, but we needed to put more attention into the market, and we really needed to invest into the market. And that was the intention of moving up there. And when I moved up there, I actually only had one resource on my team at the time, and he and I really began to take matters into our own hands, start to deliver. We brought people in from the.
I think he's in the attendee today. He's
oh, is he?
Yeah, you want to call him out, give him a shout out?
Mr. Gregory Scott Davis. He would be my first.
He's an attendant. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't a hire. He was my only employee for a period of time. I rehired at one point, but I certainly didn't hire him. But he and I mean, look, we took a different tack to the business. I mean, we really rolled up our sleeves. We looked at the business. We looked at it as our own business, and how do we achieve the success in Canada that we saw in the United States. And we actually borrowed some employees from the U.S. We brought them up into Canada to help build it out. We looked at a team effort. We brought 3 people into the region who are still either part of Citrix or friends of Citrix, and we really started to build the team out. When I think about what we did, I mean, there were a couple of really good opportunities. We partnered with a number of different customers. It was a lot of it was really heavy lifting in terms of being able to get back to the roots, and really showing customers that we can achieve the success that they're looking for. Working closely with our sales counterparts, working closely with folks like yourself and our channel throughout Canada, and giving it the old the old one too. I mean, I think traveling back and forth, I had a good experience in Red Deer as well. Got out to Vancouver and Victoria. Got to see you in Montreal. Obviously.
Yeah.
And then when I think back at it, I mean, Toronto is still one of my favorite places in the world. Really glad that I had to go there. I took the family there, my family there, a couple of years ago. not specifically Toronto, but took them up to Blue Mountain, and you know, did a little bit of skiing with them, and they wanted to see snow, and you know, I said, if there's any place I can absolutely guarantee snow, let's go to Canada, and I'll show you. And the funny thing is, I think where we are in London, we're probably even further north than some areas of Canada, and it's still a heck of a lot colder in Canada than it is in London.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
didn't
so,
mention Edmonton is incredibly cold and dry, and that's another place that I remember quite well.
Yeah, and we have somebody from Edmonton down here too, so we're gonna give a little shout out to Jason.
Oh, Jason McDonough.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there you go. Hey, so yeah, so you know, it goes into this goes, you know, the next question we're gonna lead into like some of the work culture stuff and stuff that we're gonna talk about work, virtual workplace and the new workplace. First of all, like how did you become someone who doesn't have an off button? Right? For those of you who don't know, Mark he's never off. He's always on. He send him an email or a text message at 3 o'clock in the morning. He will respond to you right away. And you know, and really, like, how do you actually balance it? Consider like all the, you know, all the tremendous pressure that's being always on, you know, at you know, 24/7 in your professional and also in your personal life.
Yeah. So yeah, I think if you mentioned a couple of people who are on the call who wanted to hear from me today, they probably know about my my not having an off button. But you know what I'll say is this: you're right, I don't have an off button, but I have an idle button. So I'm either in an on state or I'm in an idle state. So I'll say that the way I do it is that I maximize my time. And when I think about this, I think back to, you know, another one of your guests. You know, I think when you guys interviewed Mark Templeton, and you know, Mark Templeton, for a while we were talking about the concept of work slicing, and I think that's the way I've been able to do it. And I think about the whole concept of maximizing my idle time. So here's a definition that we came up with for work slicing. So it's a small amount of time that is focused away from an existing task, yet you're able to focus 100% of effort on that new task. So, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, the concept of hyper-threading or multi-threading, you know, especially in the technical world, you know, where we look at it that way. I think the way I like to look at it is, you know, not necessarily multi-threading, but, you know, really trying to maximize the task that you're working on at that given time. That task could be related to work. That task could be related to family. That task could be related to yourself. But you know, the way I do it is I maximize whatever task I'm working on. I had a high school football coach, you know, one time who said I only had 2 speeds, and they were often fast, and there was nothing else in between. And I think I've always kind of lived my life that way, and the way I do it is just by maximizing that period of time that's idle. You know, even when there's nothing going on, you know, just being able to maximize that time of nothingness and being able to operate in that fashion. And you know, even if you have, you know, opportunities where, you know, you are idle and you want to leverage that to think about things, you use that time to do that, whether it's on an airline or whether it's, you know, commute time. You know, Troy Hansen, he's probably not on this call, but Troy Hansen used to work in the consulting organization as well. You know, he turned me on to windshield time, you know, 15 years ago, you know, just traveling back and forth and making sure I call everybody I possibly can, you know, during that time. Or you turn it off. You know, you turn the phone off and you listen to music, and you just try and be present, you know, wherever you're at. It's just that moment, you know, that you're in is really trying to be present. And I think that's that's the most important thing about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. No matter what, I think no matter whatever you're doing, give that 100% at at that moment, right? And I think that is the most important.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that.
I think the other piece is, when you say it that way, it makes me think of something else. I was watching Fast and the Furious, the other night, Tokyo Drift. Was it really part of the franchise or was it not? I like that one a lot, and I think you were
Yeah,
buddies with, or you at least met
with
Hans
some,
from,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, from him. But he said a speech, or he wasn't. Yeah, we didn't say a speech, but he said something in one of the scenes, and he said, to be the best, we need to be willing to do what no one else would do. And I think that's another way I live my life. And it comes back to the whole concept of grit. You always have to be moving forward, and you always have to be addressing what's next. And that's how I've kind of lived my life, and it's worked, and on both sides.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, so that's, speaking of that, speaking of the, you live your life and you give yourself the challenge. Let's talk about your new challenge, right? Moving from the consulting and services world, which you built most of your career, into now leading the product sales side, the entire the core business side of Citrix, and also leading it in a new country. What do you see ahead of you that is different between doing that doing that, first of all, doing that, and then second is that how do you, between doing that in the US and now in the UK in a different market?
Yeah, I think there's two areas to that. I think one is the different markets. So you have the U.S., which is relatively different. I wouldn't say it's demonstratively different between between the U.S. and the U.K. But there are certainly some cultural differences that you have to work with. I think the other area is moving from a customer success and professional services world to one that's focused on product sales. And I'll say the differences are, I mean, there are differences there, but they're not massive differences. And the biggest difference, I'll say, if we look at it first culturally, is when you look at a place like London, where we're living in London right now, the amount of industry that is here is incredible. When you look at the United States, there is a massive amount of industry in the United States as well. The GDP in the U.S. Vastly outpaces anywhere else in the world, but it is a much larger place from a geography perspective. So, in the East is very financial intensive. The West has a lot of technology. Washington, D.C. has policymakers. There's a lot of manufacturing in the central part of the region. We have oil and gas in the south part of the central United States. You have the health sciences in Boston, with everything that's going on there. So your different teams and your different partners are kind of focused on the markets and the verticals that they live in. When you look at London, London has all of those sectors. So you have the ability to gain an incredible amount of experience across all of the different verticals in London. So I think one of the key differentiators is that where you are based, when you're based in London, you need to be ready to look at all of those verticals. You got to be able to look at financial, technology, healthcare, policymakers, manufacturing, health science, all of it, at the same time. And you learn, so much when you're in that world. On the product side, I would say, you just have a different set of people, really. I mean, it's at the end of the day, one of the greatest things about Citrix and the relationship that we have, with our customers is that we're always focused on customer success. Whether it's professional services delivering that work, or whether it's our product sales organization doing that work, or it's our sales engineers, or it's our channels, we are always focused on seeing customer success. And if you have that mantra going into this role, or in that role in customer success, it's the same thing. I mean, right now we're talking about, talking to our customers about cloud, and we're talking about moving them on the, moving them from from an on-site perspective to one that's based in the cloud. It's around, helping support them in that motion. That's not something that just lives within our professional services or our customer success organization. That lives within our sales team as well. So our sales team starts to move in that direction. So I think there are some nuances there, some things that I have to get used to. I mean, it does stay light here until 10 o'clock at night, which is interesting. And the sun comes up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I know at some point that'll shift, and it'll get dark at 4 o'clock at night at some point, and it won't get light until 8:30 or 9 in the morning. But really looking forward also to the pandemic ending, so that we could actually meet some customers, talk to them about what we're trying to do, and moving forward from there.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't wait either. So for sure, we wanted the life to get back to normal like we used to be, for sure. So yeah. So speaking of that, right? Speaking of you're talking about getting back to normal, and recently you shared an article that from MIT about dealing with employees returning to the workplace, and what are the key things that the employer and employees can do to ensure productivity as well as maintain that flexibility going forward. Because I think that last 2 years that there's a massive adaptation of working remote and just become a norm, right? Even on jobs that wasn't normally that way, it became that way. And now that as we're going back, in your mind, in your opinion, that what do we need to do to make sure that people don't get burned out, people don't feel that they're on a leash the whole times, or how do we all be productive, and and not just saying I'm working from home and I was out walking my dog all day, right? So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point, and I think what I'm going to say is we need to get rid of the concept of working from home, or need to get rid of the concept of working remotely, and we just need to say we're working. Because what happens when we say we're working from home, we're automatically setting some type of perception around somebody, because there are plenty of people out there who will say that they are more efficient working from the office, and there's as many people will say that they're more efficient from working from home. It's really, again, the lens in how you look at it. If you look at, we actually did some research on this from a Citrix perspective, and a lot of this relates to the company culture. And you worked with Citrix, and you know our company culture, and we've had a very strong company culture for many years. Always geared around the employee, always geared around collaboration, always geared around being able to work from anywhere, at any place, from anywhere, any place, at any time, and any application. It's a whole any story. It's what we've been talking about for years. When we did that research, we actually found that it was relatively even. About 25% had said that their company culture had actually improved during the pandemic, and about 30% actually said that it got worse. So there's about a 5-point differential there. Not huge, but what it's saying is that some people got it right and some people got it wrong. And I think as we look at how we're going to go forward, I think we as leaders, we need to think a lot about company culture. And I think it's conversations that we need to be having right now. Even in the point we're in right now, there's a lot of discussion about what does returning to the office look like? What are the mandates going to be when you return to the office? And there needs to be more clarity around that, more discussion around that. I think we need to consider, having focus groups of our employees, bringing them in, talking to them about what a work from or a return to office will look like. Do you feel comfortable going into the office, or do you want to stay? Do you want to stay home? Are you concerned about, where we are in London right now, where we are in London here? We often have to take mass transit into the office. We don't have a parking lot or a car park that we actually drive and park and walk in. All of it is transit if you're going into the city. So some people may be uncomfortable with that. You might see that in some areas, Toronto. You might see that in some areas of on the west coast of the United States, in New York. But other areas like Fort Lauderdale, where Citrix is headquartered, you're driving in. You probably feel a lot safer confined in your car. So we have to think about that. It's we in the professional services world, we talk about design thinking and we talk about journey mapping. And I think as leaders on the corporate culture side, we need to think about that too. How does an employee feel when they walk into the office? How do they feel on that commute in? Are there challenges, along that way that we need to consider? And then once they get to the office, we need to think about that as well. We need to think about, have we structured our office and have we built our office from a technical standpoint in a way that is going to be conducive for remote employees and on-site employees to be having the same experience, whether they're on-site or whether they're remote. And that's the consistent experience I talk about. If you're working at home, and if I'm at home and if you're in the office, Todd, how do we ensure that the collaboration that we're doing right now is going to occur when you're in the office? Because I foresee a world where you're in the office, you're going to be running one place to another. I'm just going to be sitting in front of my laptop and I'm going to be waiting for you to come back on the screen while you're collaborating with people. We need to start having those questions, and we need to start thinking about that and potentially have, some groups discussing that. The concept, I talked about a concept of location bias out there as well. We need to think about employees who are choosing not to go to the office. We need to ensure that they're not being looked at, in a different light. And the person who is going to the office gets all of the opportunities because they happen to be in the office, next to the leadership team. Those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. The other thing is we often, you have the, we talk about the office being a place to collaborate. We talk about, a lot of work we get done is around the water cooler or around the coffee machine. Is that water cooler even going to exist in a post-pandemic world for the next 6 months? Because when you look at it, there still is, a lot of, probably have to be masked up. You do have to social distance. Is it going to be the same as it was a year and a half ago? And we need to prepare our employees, for that. And I think that discussion is what's important. And I think when you look at the different cultures that companies have at Citrix, we have our core values. They're, somebody's probably going to tell me I'm wrong, but they're integrity, curiosity, courage, respect, and unity. And those are our core values. And we need to make sure that we're looking at those core values and everything that we do while we go back to this hybrid way of working, that we're holding all of those values strong. And it needs to happen not just at the, it's not just the human resources, it's not just the people side of it. It needs to be all leaders, whether you're, the vice president of a sales organization, or if you're a professional services delivery manager, or if you're a, sales director on your team, if you lead the public relations team or the marketing team, you're going to be part of this. And that's something that we're all going to have to be delivering.
Yeah, for sure. And what you mentioned earlier, like how do you make it equal between, the person who's choose to be the office and close to everybody, and that other person who's remote? Like how do you make them feel that they have the equal opportunity for either their opportunity in the jobs or opportunity in investment and so on? I think that is definitely something that I know that has been, like something that I thought of like in the past, and now it's even more, I think, because there are now more people that will choose to be away, right? So yeah, so 20 plus years in the Citrix business, we all know that the change is the only constant, and there's always something changing in Citrix. What are you seeing the changes that are going to bring the excitement in the Citrix business going into 2022 and beyond? Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things that we're looking at right now that are interesting. The piece that I see, we're talking a lot about cloud right now, and we're talking about all of the different types of clouds that you can work with. For a long time we were talking about a hybrid multi-cloud strategy, whether or not we can work on Azure, AWS, GCP. I think the piece that's interesting to me right now is what we're doing around security, and what we're doing about providing providing customers a little bit more confidence in terms of being able to access their applications, access their data, in a secure manner. And now with some of our products, not going into a specific product presentation here, but Citrix Analytics is a nice add-on that we're seeing a lot of people interested in for a couple of reasons. One, you have a performance side of it where you get a lot more data and a lot more understanding of what's happening in your infrastructure. But then we're also seeing a lot on the security side. So really being able to understand, who is accessing your infrastructure, who is accessing your data, when they're doing it, what it looks like. We've had some customers in the UK where there were security impacts, and during they've actually seen bad actors leveraging our product, or not leveraging our product, but our customer leveraging our product to see the bad actors actually trying to come in and actually preventing the attack. So I mean, I think that piece is really interesting to me. What we're doing around with products now like Secure Internet Access as well. Being able to our whole story around SASE and what we're doing with that side of the story. That's the piece that's going to be, I think, really interesting as we start to kind of approach the edge a little bit in terms of providing that that security. I think on the cloud front, it's certainly moving forward. I think customers starting to think about which cloud do I use for which use case is becoming a very interesting part of the story as well. I think the acquisition of Ferroque was an interesting one as well. When you look at Ferroque and you think about their mission and how that relates to our mission, it's really about how our story has always been how you get work done. And if you have an opportunity to actually use Ferroque, you can actually see why the stories make sense. On the surface, you might ask the question, what's the acquisition all about? But I would say use the product, take a look at it, and now you'll see that that's a way to get work done. And there are a number of use cases that you can leverage in the sales world, in the professional services world around it. And it's something that's really interesting. And I think over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, when we see how security is playing out and how Ferroque's playing out, that's what's getting me up in the morning to do it. I think the other piece is just on when we go back to this level of working. It's the new verticals that we're going to go into. We're seeing higher education right now more interested in Citrix. I think higher ed experience and lower ed experience something that the rest of the business world was prepared for. The business world was always ready for some type of pandemic. They were worried. They were always ready. Not a pandemic, but a shutdown. Whether it was an attack, or whether it was a hurricane or a tornado, or a conference or a G7 event or something like that, they were always prepared for it. Higher ed never really was. So I think now that they've experienced it, there's a market there that we can think about what can our products do a little bit differently to support higher education, and then potentially a little bit down the line into K through 12 and that sort of thing. I think that piece is what I'm starting to focus on, having a number of conversations with our customers in the education field, working with some of our analysts on the education side to see how we can potentially move that a bit more as well.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. That was, I think that if we could figure out a way to do business in those areas, it really will make the I would think that it will really make the future workforces that are more educated in terms of leveraging these type of tools, instead of us now trying to beat a dead horse to older generation of people that never used to work virtually and complain about not being able to do the things that they wanted to do, and so on and so forth. And I think that starting them young, starting them getting, having them have that habit is probably the best investment for them, and for Citrix in the Citrix business as well, I think. So so what, so you talk about the customer, you talk about the future of the technology and products. Where do you see partners like us, Ferroque Systems, fit into this the new Citrix business in the ecosystem?
So I would say that there's a few areas for that. I think that the first one I mentioned, I'd say there's two I'll touch on. I'll say the first one is around the cloud. So as I mentioned earlier, Citrix is agnostic towards which cloud you use. Whether you're using Azure or AWS or GCP, that's really up to you as or that's really up to the customer as the as the end user. But I think this is where partners like yourself, Todd, are really going to have to come in and help the customer make some decisions, because it's my opinion that a hybrid multi-cloud strategy typically makes sense for customers that are looking at different use cases. For GCP, you may want to use a cloud for one use case, or for one use case, you may want to use GCP. If you're looking at big data, you may want to go with AWS. If you're looking for infrastructure and scale, you might want to go with Azure. And I think it's incumbent upon our partners and our ecosystem there to provide that intel and that guidance to our customers in terms of strategy sessions, and really becoming strategic advisors. I think it's more important now than ever for our partners to provide that strategic guidance to our customers. It's not just around the actual deployment of the technology, because the deployment is relatively straightforward. I mean, you could YouTube a lot of things right now, and you can figure a lot of stuff out. Where the trick is being able to match the use cases to the technology and the experience that partners like yourself have around all of these different verticals. It comes in immensely, for our customers. Our customers have a lot of experience within their own industry. They have a lot of experience deploying their technology, but it's what advice can you give them that you've seen from other like customers? I think that's one area. I think the second is around which technology to pick. A lot of technologies are out there. We touched on analytics. We touched on security. Security is a buzzword. I mean, everybody's looking at how they prevent DDoS attacks, how they prevent ransomware attacks. And there are a lot of vendors out there who have solutions, and they have technologies that can prevent it. We are one of those vendors that we have technology that can prevent it. And you as a partner, you need to go in and you need to say, where does that technology make sense to leverage? When do we bring it in? How do we bring it in? What does that strategy look like? You can't do it all at once either. So I think it's important from a planning perspective, for our partners to put together a plan for the customer to roll this out in over a period of time. So I mean, it's that strategic advisory piece, but it's becoming more and more critical that you're involved in that piece now.
Yep. Oh, definitely. There's we're seeing it every day, and we're also seeing how to actually leverage and also know how to deal with different cloud providers was really critical. This morning, right before this call, we had to deal with one, and it really is the lack of knowledge between different clouds and then their intricacies, and that's where we help, and I think that you're very true on that. All right, so all the serious questions are done. So let's just talk about a little bit about this. We have 5 fast questions, to let people get to know you better, and we have a little fun too. All right.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So okay. So number 1, the Hotspurs or the Arsenal?
I would go with the Spurs. I mean, if we saw how Harry Kane performed in the Euros, you'd have to go with Tottenham. But I will say this, Todd. At the end of the day, I'm still an American football fan, and it's always about the U for me.
It's always about the U, right?
Can't leave that out. Can't leave that out.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. So number two, next one. Most people don't know that you have a hidden talent, which is really good at doing math. So in 30 seconds, can you explain to everyone how do you actually count cards on the blackjack table?
Counting cards? Todd, I'd never do that. I would never do that. I would never admit to it. There are a number of different systems for counting cards, and if I tried to explain one of them, I'd probably get it wrong. I think I just got lucky a lot. I sat next to a lot of people playing blackjack in my day, and I think a lot of it came down to luck. I think a lot of it comes down to actually the betting system as well, and making sure that you maximize your streak, and you try and stay away from you maximize your winning streak, and you try and stay away from your losing streak. So again, it's all about that maximization.
There you go. There you go.
But I personally would never count cards. It's just not appropriate.
No. Counting cards, it's legal.
It is.
It's legal. The casinos can choose not to do business with you. That's another story, but it is legal.
I have never been kicked out of a.
You can't gang up on them. If you gang up on them, that's another story. You can't do that. Yeah. You cannot have 5 of your best friends and go and play in the same table and gang out on them. That's a different story.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3. You're stuck on in the airport on a flight delay. What would you rather have? Spend 2 hours in the spa but no Wi-Fi, or sitting next to 300 upset customers with full bars on your phone?
You know what? I'd rather be at the bar. You know, I mean, because A, I've got my phone. B, I've got full bars. And then, I'm with some customers. I mean, we can turn them around.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as the bar is full, I mean, is it full bars on my phone and a full bar behind it? I'll take the bar over the spa any day. I don't like to be myself. I like to be around people.
There you go. There you go. Definitely. All right. So
Hey Todd, can I ask you something? Which one for you, spa or bars?
Well, depends on which airport. If it was Bangkok, I would go to the, if it's Bangkok International Airport, I would be at the spa, because they have amazing spas that's courtesy of Thai Airways. If it was London Heathrow, or a big airport at Chicago, Miami, definitely at the bars, 100%. I think, and in fact, that I think in Miami there's even bars that you could actually have you could actually light up a cigar inside the airport. So there you go. Yeah, there is. Been there.
Awesome. You have.
All right. Yeah. So the next one. There's a few places that you spend a lot of time in your life. So Georgia, Miami, or London?
I got to go with London. Got to go with London.
Always
it's a great
present, right? Always, yeah. And it's always the present, right? You gotta
it's always about the present. Maximize the present. So right now it's all about London. Last year I would have told you Miami. 6 months ago I would have told you. But they all got their good things. Where I was in Georgia, we were up in the mountains, and it was perfect during the pandemic, because we had a whole bunch of acres away from everybody, nobody around us, and still allowed the kids to run around and play and experience nature.
All right, definitely. Our friend Paul Vallasori from asked the question: Ferrari or Lambo? Is that question for me or for Mark?
That question's for you. We know the answer to that one.
We know the answer for that one. Today the answer will be it's always going to be a Lambo, because it is, after all, owned by the Volkswagen Group. So it's part of the Porsche, Volkswagen, and Audi family. So there you go. Much more reliable too. It is much more reliable after they are owned by Audi. So okay, so the last one there, number 5, wine or beer?
Rum.
Rum. We know that. What's the rum of the day these days? Is it still
Oh,
Zacapa?
no. I mean, that's a good one, but I would say Diplomatico is probably probably my favorite. It's a little bit. You don't find it as much as Zacapa. Zacapa's now you find it on every at any kind of high class bar will have it, but Diplomatico is absolutely a very good one out of Venezuela. Another good one is Centenario out of Costa Rica, and it's all about the number of years too. Make sure you have enough years on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Diplomatico is definitely very, very good. A little bit, a little bit more on the sweet side, but definitely, it's actually I find it's funny because it's less available in the U.S., more here, and then for the Zacapa, it's the other way around.
Oh, is it?
Which is weird. Yeah, it's weird. Cool. All right. Any other questions from the I got the. Hold on, I got the. There's a question from the crowd. There says that Mark mentioned the strategic advisory piece as becoming more critical. It sounds like is the new partner CSM role is becoming more of a strategic thing going forward.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's a good question. Not sure if that's coming out of the Americas, EMEA or APJ, but the partner CSM role is absolutely something we've been investing quite a bit in, and we're building that out significantly. And in a couple of the channel meetings that I've led and that I've been in the UKI, the partner CSM role has been brought up on a number of occasions. Again, I think that goes back to the whole strategic piece. And I mean, if you think about it, we talked about cloud, we talked about adoption, we talked about our retention, and now the partner CSM plays into that. I mean, I think working with our partners to identify use cases and identify where we can move forward is becoming more and more important. So absolutely. And we are investing in that quite a bit too. We're building out that team to see what they can do over the course of the next couple of years to work with you all to make that happen.
That's all on the Fast Fives, and we're gonna hand it back to Amber.
But before we go to Amber, since he's on the call, I would have to say I could never have without Todd Sue and Greg Davis and another guy, Bob Hesseltine, we never would have been able to make Canada what it was. So thanks to all of you. Go ahead.
Awesome.
And Jason McConey. Jason's out there too. He came along later, but he's out there too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed today's thought leadership call. It was great to hear all your ideas, Mark. I especially liked the one where you said working versus working from home or working remote. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. And the work splicing is also one of my favorites as well, versus multitasking. Thank you again, Mark. It was a pleasure having you today. Thank you, Todd, for leading us in this great conversation. And we hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Great to see you, Todd. Thanks,
all
everyone.
Right, good to see you too.